What is up, Facebook? How's everybody doing tonight? It is Cody Cottle here, the founder and CEO of Motivation Everything, here to do another Motivation Everything live expert interview in front of all of you. Tonight, I got someone awesome that I brought in that I'm going to have the opportunity to interview, ask a bunch of questions, and he's going to be sharing some phenomenal stuff with us, so stay tuned. So, guys, I have Steve Werner with me. And Steve's done some incredible things with his life. So bear with me as I try to keep the breath to go through this. So, after running corporate events for years, Steve went on his own over 6 years ago. His mission was to build live events that changed lives. He poured his life savings of $28,000 into his first event, which got him a total of 2 registrants. Brokenhearted and distressed, he went back to the drawing board. The lesson here was that it's not about what you know how to do, but how you market it. Steve went on to learn everything he could about marketing, filling events, and selling from stage. Over the next several years, he was trained by some of the best in the business, including Russel Brunson, Frank Kern, Dan Kennedy, just to name a few. He went on to hold over 45 live events and speak on more than 80 live events worldwide, including Harvard's Business Summit. He built a successful multiple six-figure ads agency through live events before transitioning into business coaching. He's on a mission to help entrepreneurs, influencers, and coaches grow their business by showing them how they can stop competing on price and start attracting affluent clients through events, presentations, and public speaking. In the last 12 months, his clients have cleared more than $2.8 million in sales from his direct consulting. Help me welcome Steve Werner, guys.
Dude, you read that really well. I like it.
Appreciate it, man. I have the speaking coach on here. I had to do pretty good,
Awesome.
Well, we're honored to have you.
Dude, thank you so much for having me, Cody. I am super excited to be here. I know we've talked a little bit, but I'm stoked to be here and share with everybody in your audience whatever I can. So take it away.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So let's kind of dive right into it, Steve. First of all, tell us a little bit about your story. Tell us a little about Steve. Obviously, I just gave quite a bit of background on you, but what are some of the things you went through to get where you're at doing what you're doing right now? And explain a little more to people what exactly it is you do.
Sure. So, I worked in corporate restaurants, holding their banquet events, right? I worked as a fine dining server, then I worked as a fine dining manager. I worked for Vail Corporation and I helped build the VIP events. So if a company wanted to come to Vail, they wanted to hold 3 trainings at night, have some nice 5-star dinners, go hit the slopes during the day. We helped build all of that out for them. And people always told me, you have great events. We really, really enjoy being here. I used to get thank you letters. And I was like, I really want to go out on my own. I want to do more. I want to be more. I want to serve people. I'd always kind of had that. I had a business in college, which I sold before I got back into restaurants. I just felt this calling to do it. So I saved up my money, and I'm not a person who sits around for long. So I had quite a bit of money in the bank at the time. I just decided, this is it. So I quit working for Vail. I moved to Las Vegas because that's the center where all the events take place. I decided I was going to hold an event. I went down to Treasure Island 2 days after I moved there, and I signed on the dotted line for the largest event space they had, which was at the time 1,400 people. And the lady looked at me, I remember going into her office, right, and sitting down, we toured the space, and she was like, you've held events before? I was like, no, not like I've held events working for a company, but I've never held my own. She's like, you're not worried about this? Because I was signing on the line for the total cost was going to be about $70,000.
Wow.
By the time, so that was the event space, the sound, the lighting, and the food. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to be a big deal. This is going to go really well. No problem. So I go back and I start marketing. I had just short of $28,000, 27 and some change. And it went like that. Just burned through money, and I did everything, right? First, they told me I needed a website, so I got a website built. Then they told me, you need copywriting, you need to be in print, you need to be on radio, you need to be doing Facebook ads, you need to be doing all this different stuff. So I did everything. And the mistake that I made was that I thought I built an event. We've all seen Field of Dreams, right?
Right.
I built an event. Build it and they will come. Well, build it and they did not come. They did not show up at all. I was doing everything I could think of. At one point, I hired a guy to do the spinny signs on the side of the road. You've ever seen those guys with like the big arrow sign? Driving them to, I was in a Lowe's parking lot. I rented a booth. I was trying to talk to people. And so 4 weeks before the event, I had a total of 2 people register, which I think they registered because I was actually calling people. And I think they just wanted to get me off the phone. So I had 2 people registered, and I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I was down. I had no money left. I had to go back to Treasure Island, and lucky for me, the lady, I sat down with her, and she just said, there's somebody else who wants the event space for something different on that weekend. We're not going to hold you to the minimum. We're just going to keep your deposit, which the deposit was $5,000, and we're going to let you out of your contract. And that, like, if they would have held me to my contract, I would have had to file bankruptcy. There's no way I could have paid them. So I was like, man. So I remember after that, I sat down at the bar, the Frog Bar, right? If you've ever been to Treasure Island in Las Vegas, sat down at the Frog Bar with my friend, and she was like, hey, like, what are you going to do now? I had a couple options. I mean, I could have gone back. I was being contacted by headhunters. I could have gone back into the restaurant industry. Could have gone and bartended somewhere. I could have been really depressed and upset and frustrated and not done anything, right? Melted down into a bottle or something. But instead, like, I was like, I know that I can do this. Like, this is what I want to do. I want to do live events. I know I'm good at it. I know I'm good at public speaking. At least I thought I was at the time. And she said, well, we have a spare room. It was like a utility room. She was like, you're welcome to come stay there for as long as you need, figure out what you want to do. So I did. I moved into this utility room. We were walking distance to the library. So walking distance in Vegas means that you're a couple blocks because it's hot.
Right.
But I moved in, and like, I didn't have much stuff. Most of my stuff was in storage. I had a bed, a chair, and I went and bought a desk at the thrift store. I started going down to the library, and I got everything they had on marketing. And somehow I was lucky enough that I came across a Dan Kennedy cassette tape package called Butts and Seats. So Dan Kennedy, direct marketing, old school direct marketer. He's pretty much like the father of.
Dude, he's pretty well known, man. Yeah, he's like the godfather of direct marketing.
Yes. Yeah. If you don't know who he is and you're listening to this, go find him. He's a crotchety old man. Think like Bad Grandpa meets like marketing genius, and you end up with Dan Kennedy. He's crotchety, he's grumpy, he's funny, kind of, but genius. So somehow I ended up with this cassette tape thing, and at the time I had a Toyota Celica with a tape deck. Crazy, right? Like, I was like, how is this? But I put those tapes in the car, and I ended up listening to them. I think it was a couple days later, we were going somewhere for dinner across town. We were going to one of the all-you-can-eat sushi places. And I was like, well, I'll put the tape in there. And I got to the sushi place, and I actually stayed in the car till the tape was done playing because there was so much information. Like, the tape just grabbed my attention. I was like, oh my goodness, this is really good. So I went back to the thrift store, and I actually bought like a cassette tape boombox thing so that I could play the tapes. But I followed what he said, and I had a credit card with about $3,000 on it. I rented space at South Point Casino, so down at the south end of the strip. Didn't cost me near as much money. I sold out the next event following what those tapes said, and put 100 people in a room, 100 dentists, did really well, cleared about $8,000. And I thought I was the king of the world. I was like, whoo, I held a successful event. What happened from there, though, is really crazy, because then Dan Kennedy got me this change. So I went to Dan Kennedy's event. And Dan you can pay a little extra money and sit at a round table. And Dan told me, like I'm sitting at the round table, I go through my whole story, and he just shakes his head and he was like, "You are an idiot. What are you doing?" I was like, "What do you mean? Like I just made $8,000. Like I'm here, I'm holding an event." He was like, "You have to be on stage selling." And I was like, "Well, they're dentists. Why would they ever listen to me? What do I have to say to them?" And that's when he was like, "You can come up with something to sell them. You can take my products and sell them. You can sell somebody else's products right now. You could do a JV." He had all these ideas, and my mind, like the light bulb went on over my head, and I was like, "Oh." So the next year I held 4 events. I cleared a little bit over $100,000. The year after that, my goal was to hold 16 events. We ended up holding 12, did very, very well. I started speaking and selling and built my Facebook ads agency off of speaking on stage, teaching marketing on stage, showing people what to do, and then saying, "Hey, I just showed you how to do everything. If you would like to work with me and you'd like me to do it for you or me to help you do it, let's have that conversation."
Right.
And I learned how to speak and sell from stage, which was really what I wanted to do all along. Like that's why I held live events, because I knew they affected people. Went to Tony Robbins events, and was really blown away by those. That's what got me into the event space, and that's what made me so excited about it.
Dude, that's awesome, man. And it's crazy how you went from, going all in the event space when you never thrown one before, almost going bankrupt from it, to then throwing and selling out like 100 people, and you filled that. And for those that don't know, events, and you can maybe speak more into this, selling tickets is one thing, getting butts in seats is another thing. And not everybody shows up and it fills out an event. Have you ever run into that, like where it's been challenging to actually filling up the room for the events?
Sure. So that's the main fear that everybody has, right? They want to hold an event, they rent the space, they have it all laid out, but they're really scared about getting people there. And what I did for that first event, so instead of putting all my money into marketing, the biggest thing that I did, so it was for dentists in Las Vegas. I went to Las Vegas, I went to Los Angeles, I went to San Diego, and I went to Phoenix. I think I maybe went to one other town. And I literally did, instead of spending money on marketing, I spent money on doing donut drops. So I got half a dozen donuts, put a flyer for my event, went into the dental office, like knocking on doors. You're going to appreciate this because you did direct sales. Like
I did my time.
Yeah. I mean, "Hey, what's going on, Joanne? I know you're really busy. I just brought you guys 6 donuts. I wanted to wish you guys an awesome day." That gets you, one, a bunch of goodwill. And then they say, "Oh, well, what do you do? Why are you here?" "Hey, I'm running a digital marketing summit specifically for dentists. It's $495, but if you guys are interested, I can get both you and the owner in. I'll give you a 2-for-1 for $495. I need to know today, though. Here's my card. I'll be in the area. Just let me know." Like doing that over and over and over and over filled the room. And that wasn't the only thing. I mean, we did a little bit with ads, and did some flyers and did some other things, but that was the main thing, like learning to actually go out and fill it. I know that's not sexy. Everyone's like, "Oh, well, I don't want to do that." Well, you don't have to. You run Facebook ads. You can fill events without doing that. But that's what I did for that first one. When people don't show up, so there's a couple things you can do to get people to show up. The first one is call them. Have some kind of either kickstart call or connection call or implementation call, or we're going to learn about your business call. Do something where you get on the phone with them before the event. It doesn't have to be long, and it doesn't have to be you. If you're running a big event, 500 people, 400 people, it doesn't have to be you. Tony Robbins does this. They get on the phone with you 3 times before the event. They're texting you, they're emailing you, and they're calling you, all to make sure that you are ready for the event, that you're primed, that you have what you need to be successful when you get there. They give you what's called a concierge, which I think is genius. They have a person, I'm sure the person has thousands of people that they're dealing with, but they're your, quote, concierge. It makes you feel special. You're going to be way more apt to show up. With virtual events, this is a big thing. With virtual events, you should definitely have a pre-call, have a connection call, even if it's just 15 minutes to meet the other people, because what it does is it's micro commitment. Oh yeah, I'll show up. I'll network with some people. Oh, I really like these people. They're all going to the event. Well, I guess I'm going to go to the event because I want to see them again.
Right. No, that's fire, man. That's really good. Yeah, especially like we're moving. So let's talk a little more about that. The event space has changed a lot. The landscape has changed a lot. With COVID-19, virtual events are the only events that we can hold right now. What are some major things that you've seen have pivoted and changed in the event space given the circumstances we're living through right now?
Sure. So a lot of people are doing the virtual events, summits, virtual events, and webinars, right? Like those three things, people are, I would say they've gone up probably like 5x, 6x, the amount of people doing it. But the thing is that quantity goes up, quality usually goes down, right?
Right.
That's probably the biggest negative change, because you see all of this stuff out there and people are like, yeah, I want to learn XYZ. So they go sign up, they show up, and the person teaching it, it's a snooze fest. Like you log on and it's so hard to pay attention. But then there are the people who are doing it correctly. Nicholas's event that I met you at was great. Nicholas did really good. Jesse, the guy who did the sound and lighting, the people who are actually putting in some time and doing the work to make the event really good, doing so much better.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the biggest separating factors? Is it interaction, just time spent, investment to make it quality? Like, what are those dividing factors?
The first thing is that it's not just about holding the event, right? Like so many people, it's the same thing that goes wrong with live events. People think that it is all about them. It's all about me, the person putting on the event. I'm promoting it. I'm going to speak about what I want. I know what my clients want. I'm going to speak about this. I'm only going to worry about my stuff.
Right.
By doing that, you alienate your audience. And if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I'm trying to think about what my customers and clients want, get on the phone with them, get them on a Zoom call, doing the pre-calls, getting people warmed up, getting them excited. Like, this is the thing. Whenever you speak, Cody and I are both standing right now. We're standing because we have more energy when we are standing. When you are coming through video at somebody, interacting with them, you are 2 levels less than what your normal energy is. So if you're sitting at your desk and you're at a level 5, you're coming across at a level 3. If you're presenting at an event and you're at a 5 or a 6, you're 2 levels less. That means that you need to get yourself up, get out of your chair, set something up so that you can stand up and really bring energy, because that's what's engaging. Energy, storytelling, getting people involved in what you're doing, right? So the really good virtual events are doing pre-calls, they're getting people there, and they're doing state breaks. So if you've ever been to a Tony Robbins event, he's really, really good about doing state breaks. Every 5-10 minutes, get up, do some jumping jacks, move around. You've got to do that on your virtual events. Give people, either send them the little things that they can hold up to the screen, or teach them things to do with their hands, right? Hey, when you really like something, give us a big thumbs up right at the screen, right? Do things that get people to interact with you. It seems corny, but it makes people feel good. And what's the number one way that people buy? It's not logic.
Emotion.
Emotion.
Yeah.
So if you want people to buy from you, get people emotional on your event, on your
What
website.
blows my mind is, they say emotion puts things in motion, but motion also creates emotion. It's a circle, and like creating, like our bodies are comprised of chemicals. So that state change of just moving right there, just a couple jumping jacks I did, I felt a burst of energy. I felt like I was able to show up with more assertiveness on this call, and that immediately changed my emotional state. And that's powerful, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing that I see a lot, people that were really good at one-on-one sales, right? They were really good at sitting down with somebody and walking them through the sales process, or just having a conversation, doing coffee meetings, right?
Right.
Speaking on a virtual event, speaking on a stage anywhere, whether it's virtual or live, is completely different than the singular sales conversation.
100%.
There is definitely a format that you can follow when you are speaking in front of people, and it has nothing to do with providing a ton of information. If you're watching this right now and you're like, what did he just say? I want you to think about your favorite high school teacher. Think about your high school teachers in general, and now you've got your favorite high school teacher, right? What made them your favorite? I guarantee you it was not the information that they put into your head. It was how they interacted with you.
100%.
It was how engaging they were, right? They went to college the same as all the other boring teachers that you didn't like. The boring teachers that you didn't like focused on information. The person that you liked, the teacher that you liked, to him or her, whoever it was, they got information into your head. I guarantee you learned from them. But that wasn't what got you in the door. That wasn't what built the relationship. The same thing goes with presenting from stage, virtual or live. Either one. It's the same thing. But if you're doing it virtually, you have to tell great stories. You have to be engaging. You have to get your energy level up. Don't build a slide deck that has 200 words on a slide. That's the
I'll put people to sleep real quick.
Yeah, that's the number one thing that I've seen is they build a slide deck. You should never, ever have more than 10 words on a slide. Slide deck should be a support system to you. You are the main person. They're listening to your voice. That's like the number one thing that I see that people do wrong.
Well, can I kind of segue now? So I want to go a little more deeper on on what you're doing with people. The work you're doing is incredible, Steve. And how you're helping people with this. Talk a little bit more about what it is that you're doing and how you're helping people bring more value to the marketplace.
Yeah, of course. So before COVID, I helped people build live events. So what we did when we built live events for them was we started with what they were offering at the event. Once we knew what they were offering at the event and we built out their offer, we built out the story arc for the event, right? So if we draw this out, this is the offer that they're making. We looked at where the person needed to be, and we built a timeline of presentations to get them there. I don't know if you can see that real well. So now we're just doing the same thing. And then once we knew what this was, we then built out a marketing arc so that we could fill the event for them. So now I'm doing the same thing with virtual people. If you want to hold a virtual event, if you're speaking somewhere, if you want to hold a webinar, we look at the stories because you have to build a great presentation, right? A webinar, a virtual presentation that works. I've dissected more than 90 of them now. A webinar that works has at least 25 stories in it. There's 5 big stories that you need, and then there's somewhere between 15 and 25 little supporting stories. This is where your webinar gets energy. It's where you connect with people through the screen. It's not through the teaching, right? So I help
100%.
people build all of that out. The other thing that I did that really helped people in the live event space, which we're now doing in the digital space, is I would have them, once we built their presentation, I would have them give it to a camera recording so that I could sit down and I could give them line by line critiques. And I have at least 15 testimonials where people have told me this was an absolute game changer. It has made me thousands and thousands of dollars. I got one this weekend from a lady. I gave her, she was like, can you just audit the pitch of my webinar? I feel like the pitch is where it's off. 10 minutes. She said that has been worth at least $25,000 to me.
Wow. Yeah, because sometimes it's the smallest little tweaks is all it takes.
Right. That's all it is. But it's so hard to be objective about ourselves, right? And there's so few people who have built live events or built a presentation that know what to look for. I know exactly what to look for. And by watching you do it, what I do is I just fire up Loom. I let you go, and then I pause it, and I say, okay, see what you said right there? You need to say it this way instead, or you need to move it to this part of the presentation. It allows me to give you real life critique, and then you just go and do it again, because it's like any other skill. practice, 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 practice. But if you're not practicing the right habits, you're not going to get better. You're going to get worse.
So true. Yeah. So you're actually recording the whole thing of the webinar, dissecting it, stopping at moments and telling them and giving them feedback on what they're doing, like almost like it was real time.
Correct. That's the end piece of it, right? So the first thing is we build the webinar deck. We build the offer, then we build the webinar deck, then we work on each individual parts. There's 5 pieces to the webinar, and I script each one of those out with them. Once that's done, we can put the whole thing together and I can critique the whole thing. But they're going to be perfect and maybe not flawless, but they're going to be very, very good at presenting. They're going to be very comfortable. Because what's the worst thing that you see? These people get up and they give a webinar and they're monotone, they're boring, they're stumbling over their words. You can tell that they're not comfortable with their content. And does that make you feel confident?
No, not at all.
Buying from them? Exactly.
And like you said, coming through video, it's already taken down a few notches. So not only you got to be even better, I would almost argue, on video. Like in person, you can fumble the ball quite a bit and the show can go on and you can roll with it and it's different. But through a video, like you got to be a little more on your game.
You've got to bring energy and you have to show that you are highly competent about your subject matter. And you do not do that. This is where everyone makes the mistake. Everyone thinks, well, if I have all this value on my slide deck, I will show that I know what I'm talking about. Nobody cares. That's not where they see the value. They see the value in how you present it and how you talk about it. And 95% of the people out there are talking about it in a way that actually makes them look worse.
Right. And that reminds me so much of this saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Your body language, your tonality, your confidence, your energy, all of that on what you're talking about showing up on a webinar is going to deliver that. You can be the smartest man in the world, but if your delivery is terrible, nobody's listening to you.
That's exactly right. And that's what they're like, I don't want to tell stories. I don't want to go through my origin story. I don't want to seem cheesy on camera. I just want to get straight into the meat of it. I want to teach people. Think about your high school teachers, the teachers that did that when you walked in the door and you sat down and they immediately started lecturing. What happened? Exactly. You fell asleep, you tuned out, you snuck out the back door. But the teacher that was engaging, was telling stories, was making class fun and exciting.
Yeah.
I had a teacher who used to throw erasers around, right? If they caught you sleeping, he'd get the eraser all chalked up. Nowadays that guy would get fired.
My favorite teachers in school were definitely not the best teachers in terms of like teaching me things, but they were the coolest, most interactive, engaging, this and that. Like I enjoyed being in there. You got to enjoy being in the classroom.
Well, so the difference between high school and now is high school, you had to be there. On your webinar, if you're boring, if you're not engaging, if you're not getting people to pay attention to you, they'll just leave. Yeah, it's really easy. So think about that for a second. If I look at a webinar, I had somebody that we actually know who had 45 people on the front end of their webinar and only 10 of them made it to the pitch. What does that tell you? It's boring.
Classroom was boring.
Right. It doesn't matter how good your information is if people can't get it. And this is, besides using stories, the next thing is trying to teach too much. You want to teach enough. You do want to give value. I hate the webinars that you get on and there's no value.
And you get to the end, you're like, what did I learn?
You want to teach them something, but it's a balancing act. You want to teach them enough that they feel like they've got some forward momentum, that they have learned one thing that they can use. That's enough. You're trying to you can't fit all of your expertise into a 1-hour presentation, right? How long did it take you to learn all the stuff that you know about sales and showing up with energy and motivation? How many years?
Man, almost a decade.
Can you fit that into a 45-minute presentation?
It'd be impossible.
Right. But that's what everyone tries to do. Instead, what's the one thing that you can teach people and come at it from 3 different angles so that they know how to do it by the end of it? That's all you're trying to do. It gets them in forward momentum. It positions you as an authority in the marketplace, and it gets people either on the phone with you or pressing a buying button. They stay till the end. The lady that I worked with that said that my one 10-minute video is worth $25,000. She gets 30 to 40 people on every week through ad spend, and she has almost all of them stay on for the pitch. The last one that I watched, she had, I want to say 28 people on the front end and 24 people on the pitch. She's showing up with energy. She's telling great stories. She's being highly engaging, and she's not over teaching.
That's that strong conversion to keep, 24 out of 28 to the end to hear your pitch out. That's amazing. And it's those little things that you can tweak, but things that, I wouldn't know these things. Me and you were talking a lot about this and working on me and making me better at this. It's, you don't know what you don't know. And it's a different animal. I've done some live events in a way. Like I've done public speaking, I've done paid speaking. I've never sold from stage though. And that's a whole different ball game in itself. So even what I did was different. I made a presentation. I got on there. I brought the freaking fire and the energy, and I gave my presentation. I walked off. And I got my check and I left.
So that's a much different presentation than selling from stage. So selling from stage, if we wipe this off, I'll just show you really quick. So you're trying to make the sale, which is here, right? This is the sales point. Whatever you are trying to sell them, there's usually 5 to 10 things in the stack. Those things all need to relate to different places in your talk. That's how you seed people to move people forward. With your story that you told at the beginning needs to relate to the story at the end. If you think about a great sales presentation that you listen to, you know that the person did this. A great comedy act does it as well. They seed things in the beginning, and usually the last joke that they tell ties in 2 or 3 other jokes that they told somewhere in their skit.
Bring it all together.
The same thing goes with this. You're seeding people at the beginning to say, oh, I have that problem. Oh, I want that outcome, right?
Right.
I mean, I've done it in this presentation 3 different places. If you look at my origin story, right? What were my pain points? I wanted to hold live events. I wanted to speak from stage. I wanted to reach more people. Those are business problems that anyone listening to this could have. And I've shown you how to solve those as we go along. But I've given you some direct takeaways, but I've also used a lot of stories.
Right. Yeah, that's key, man. That's key. So let's segue into the storytelling process a little bit more. How does one person that wants to, if you were giving advice to someone and they came to you and they said, hey, Steve, I want to be able to tell my story better. I've never really told my story before. Where do I start? What advice would you give them?
Sure. So I would start with why do you want to tell your story, right? Usually it is to connect with clients or to tell it from stage or to sell something. So
I come from a troubled background. I've overcame things, and now I started a business to help people in the same place I was in get where I'm at now.
So, okay, there you go. So you're helping people who were in the same place. So you need to outline what it felt like. So the first thing that I would say, you've got like the general thing. I was in high school, raised by a single mom, definitely worked all the time. I was definitely in trouble. I definitely had a lot of things going on. Okay, so we identified some of those. So now we want to pick out specific moments. So the first part, sorry, I didn't bring an eraser.
Handwork's good, right?
Yeah. The first part of the story, if we draw this story arc, right, is about 50%. And that 50%, you want to be about the pain and the suffering and what you went through before you had a moment where you realized something. So this is the moment. It's my drawing of a light bulb.
The aha moment.
Yeah, the aha moment. So for you, what happened that changed your life?
For me, I went to jail at 18 years old.
Okay.
And I sat in a jail cell, And I knew then that I needed to make a change in my life, or I was going to end up like everybody said I was going to end up, in prison like my father.
Okay. So that's the moment right there. Talk to me. So the way that a story works, this is where if people think they're telling stories, but they're not getting responses, it's because they're not telling moments. So a moment, as corny as it sounds, is exactly what it sounds like. Describe to me what it felt like sitting in that jail cell.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
what happened to get you there? And what did it feel like when you were sitting there? And then what did you realize from that?
It was the scariest night of my life. I went in a jail cell for 16 and a half hours. I got put in a room on a cot. They didn't give me a blanket. It was freezing cold. It smelled. It was nasty. It was cold. I felt stuck. I felt lost. I kept asking how I got there. I felt like I was going to end up just like people said I was, and I was going to go to prison like my father did. And I felt lost. But I also felt this sense come over me that I still had a choice, that my life wasn't over. And as long as I was breathing, I had the power to change it. So when I got out of jail and I went home and my mom sat me down and she looked at me and she said, "You're breaking my heart. You're turning into your father." It crushed me, but I used it as a building block to remember the pain I felt that night, how scared I felt, how lost I felt, how stuck I felt, to swear to myself I would never let that happen again.
Awesome. So that you just did a really good job. What I would add to it is when I got to jail, you know, the officer walked me down the hall and I could hear his footsteps echo. And we got to the metal cage that I was about to spend the next 16 hours in. And you know that noise that you hear in the movie when they open the door and you hear the gate slide, click, 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 click? Well, it sounded 10 times worse in real life. And I entered this jail cell and it smelled horrible. I realized there was no blanket. It was freezing cold. I could feel my body, like I could feel the goosebumps on my skin. Like that's a moment description, right? And then how many bricks were on that wall, Cody?
182.
And how do you know that?
Because I counted them over and over and over again.
To take your mind off of being stuck there, right?
Yeah.
What did you see out the window?
Yeah, so I could pull myself up on the bars in those little windows, and I pulled myself up, and across the street was the aquatic and fitness center gym that I was walking into 3 to 5 days a week to work out every single week. Here I was in a jail cell, stuck, not able to go to the gym.
And how did that make you feel?
Made me feel stuck.
Right. So like that's a moment that now everybody listening can say, man, I might not have lived that, but I can definitely feel that. So where we talked about pain points up here, the pain points. So when you were growing up, what were some of the same way we just told that story, you know, you tell another little micro story in the story arc, gives it a moment and it connects with the people. And you want those. So over here, I would say you want 3 to 5. For the light bulb moment, you want 1. And then after the light bulb moment is the exciting tomorrow. And this is where you want to frame stuff that connects with the people that would be your ideal client. What is the outcome that they want? Well, they want motivated. They want to do better in business, right? They want to show up in the morning. They want to be held accountable and they want to get results. Well, what happened after you left jail? You sat down and you realized you had that conversation with your mom where you knew you had to step up. You had to do something different. And what has changed in your life since then? Just give me 2 or 3 things.
2 or 3 things that changes. For one, I needed to learn better skill sets. I wanted to better master communication. So I set course on a path to do the toughest sales careers that exist. I spent time in network marketing, real estate, door-to-door, timeshare, car sales, all mastering the art of communication and how to sell. I began surrounding myself with the right people. I invested over $30,000 into masterminds and coaching and seminars to develop myself to become a better version of Cody Cottle so that I could show up and create a new identity for myself.
So tell me about the meetings that you go to for the City Planning Commission. Tell me about those meetings and like, tell me who you're in the room with for those meetings.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're in the ground stages of this right now, but I've been privileged to be invited to be in a room with prominent people in my city, top level business people, top level people within the churches and the community and high organizations here to get to brainstorm how to transform Kalamazoo, Michigan, a city that I grew up in, and make it a better place to live, addressing major issues that need to be talked about, such things as racism, single parents, just there's so much divide in our city and so much more than that. But really, how do we get the different organizations in our city to work together to transform our city for a better tomorrow?
Nice. And if you had to think about that when you were in the jail cell, do you think you ever would have reached this place?
It's crazy that you say that, Steve, like kind of pulling that out of me tonight. Dude, that was only 8 years ago. I never in my life would have imagined I would go from sitting in a jail cell being looked at like I was a piece of shit to being invited with city leaders to talk about transforming a city for a better tomorrow. So no.
But what got you there, right? It was that moment when you knew you had to change, then you knew you had to get around the right people. You knew you had to take on a challenging sales career to change who you were, and you had to build a different identity. And that's what you did. And that's what you're teaching people to do now. See 100%. How the outcomes that you had over here directly counter the pain points that you had here. And it shows people how they can start to move forward. That's what a good story does. So we build these out for everybody, for their webinars, for their virtual presentations, whether it's on a summit or whether it's Facebook Lives, anything like that. But you just did it. I mean, I know your story a little bit, but now I know it more. And anybody that pays attention to you on Motivation Anything or on Facebook knows a little bit of your story, and they want the outcomes. They see how powerful you have become in standing up for yourself and saying, this is who I am, this is what I do, these are the successes that I've had. People want to be like the people that they look up to. That's the whole point. And that's how you don't teach people, you show people through story.
Stories are the best way to learn. Stories are the oldest form of wisdom being passed on since time began.
Yep. I mean, the Bible is written in parables.
Right. And there's a reason. People wonder why it's not direct instructions. Well, we would never listen.
No, of course not.
Of course not. Dude, it's crazy even sitting here talking with you about this now. And I know we've had some communication, but how powerful a story is, for one, which I know that, but how important it is to learn your own story and master how to share it with others to convey the value that you want to be able to bring them. And there's so much power in that. For someone that wants to get better at storytelling, like myself and others that are going to watch this and watch the replay, I know my Motivation Everything Club, they'll be watching it too. And a lot of them are working better on sharing their story with others. What advice would you give us, Steve, to work through that process, to get better at, knowing our story, sharing our story, and perfecting how we share it to get the points across, we want to get across?
So, I mean, it sounds really cheesy, but just sit down, draw this little figure right here, and then just bullet point it out. Okay, what were the big pain points? What was the moment, right? Because the way that I can tell your jail story is because I've talked to you about it.
Right.
But if you sit down, you don't have to tell it from a script point of view. But with scripting it out like this, if you write it out, it gives your brain a framework, right? And within that framework, you can look at what's the outcome that we want and what were the pain points that we need to tell. If you look at anybody who tells good stories, they all use drama. They all use pacing. They all use a framework, right? Little Red Riding Hood, super easy story, right? But where's the drama? Little Red Riding Hood was trying to go somewhere, right? Little Red Riding Hood was here, was trying to go here. The big bad wolf stood in her way. We have drama. We have her overcoming the drama and having success. Now, none of us are Little Red Riding Hood. We're not trying to go to our grandmother's house. So make sure your story somehow mirrors the outcomes that people want, that's how you use a story to sell. Otherwise, it's just entertainment. It's just watching a movie.
Right.
So just take a moment and write it out. It sounds really cheesy, but if you just sit down and spend 15, 20 minutes, write it out, practice it, what's going to happen is the next time that it comes up in conversation, your mind will automatically default to what you've written down because you put some time and some energy into it. You've thought about it. That's how I would get started.
Dude, that is gold, guys. Are you catching this right now? So many people in the space, in the online space, even including myself, could get so much better at sharing our stories. And the stories, if you have something, your vibe attracts your tribe. I truly believe that with all my heart, Steve. All that I am, all that Cody Cottle is, the way I show up, the presence, the value I bring, there will never be another me. So I attract people through my personality, through what I bring, but perfecting the stories to better be able to share with people the outcomes I've created in my life from overcoming the adversity that I've faced is an art. And it's a storytelling art. And that's something I'm still, as you know, working on perfecting. But I really appreciate what you do and the value that you bring people. Know that.
Awesome. Thank you, Cody. I know we talked about if anybody listening to this wants help, I'm happy to jump on a call with you. We can talk through one of your stories. I will walk you through exactly how to build it out. I'll listen to you. I'll give you feedback. That's what I did with Cody. I'm super happy to do it with anybody listening. I just want to see people get better because I'm so sick of logging onto webinars and they're just horrible, right? They're snooze fest. You fall asleep. Or it's just really painful to watch. I would much rather help anyone out there get better at telling their story because it will make the world a better place.
Yeah. So what's your vision, man? What's your dream? What kind of impact does Steve want to make on the world? I'm curious. What's your why, brother?
Sure. I love entrepreneurs. Long time ago, when I was in college, I quit my job and I started 3 businesses because one wasn't enough, right? But this was this was like early 2000s. So the word entrepreneur didn't have the same pizzazz that it does right now, right? People didn't really know what it was. But I knew that that's what I wanted to do. Well, I did pretty well with it. I ended up selling the businesses and traveling for a while and then ending up in restaurants just because I ended up in Chicago in a restaurant and we were sitting at a bar. And the manager was complaining that his bartender didn't show up. I was visiting a friend and he was like, I was like, do you need a bartender? Because maybe I'll just stay here for a couple months. Well, because I can't just do a normal job at anything, I have to, go above and beyond. I was running that place before I knew it. And that's how I got involved in restaurants so much. I have a real heart for entrepreneurs. When I left my job, I was like, okay, I have to surround myself with other business owners, with other entrepreneurs, with other people who think like I do. Well, it was really, really hard in Vail, Colorado to find those people. So I listened to a lot of books on tape. I watched a lot of YouTube videos. I listened to podcasts. I was doing whatever I could to surround myself with that. Then I found these different masterminds and started joining tribes and started joining groups. And my heart really goes out to entrepreneurs. Like I really, really eat, breathe, and sleep that world. And I love to see them be successful. That's my heart. Like I love taking somebody that is making, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, getting them to that $200,000 point where they can live the life of their dreams. And it's nowhere near as hard as it sounds. Like there's a lot of cliches out there, but a lot like what you're doing, you don't need thousands and thousands and thousands of people. 100,000 people is a lot of people. If you have 1,000 fans that are really good fans, you can get 100 people to buy from you. That moves the needle quite a bit and gets you going. Once you have some forward momentum, it's not that hard. But I see people out there selling their services for, $100 or $49. How many $49 things do you have to sell in a month to make ends meet? A lot.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not that hard to sell something that's more expensive that's worth your time and energy. I was on a call with a lady today. She was going to sell a 6-week package of one-on-one coaching for $500.
Oh my God.
Right? I was like, what's your monthly, how much do you have to make? She's like, well, I have to make about $4,000 a month. So I'm like, okay, 8 people for 6 weeks. But the problem is that leaves no marketing budget. There's no way that you can grow your business. And every 6 weeks, you have to put 8 more people in. And that's just to break even. And like, she was having such a hard time with it, but it's really mental trash that's up in their head that's stopping them, right?
Right.
But that's where my heart is. Like,
It's interesting you say that, even like speaking to me and stuff. And I have some people that I work with in club that might be watching live right now or watch the replay that are going into a similar space. And to create a way to, whether it's coaching people or some type of service and commodity to offer them, what value would you give someone that's new entering this space, building a community, building a group, and creating something that they can sell to people to give them value, and say they just want to reach 50, 60 grand a year to start to go full time with it. What would you say to them?
Sure. So, okay, let's say that you want to reach $60,000. I think most people can agree that that is a number you can live somewhat comfortably on. You might want more, but let's just start with that. That's $5,000 a month, right?
Yep.
So $5K a month. What do you need to sell? Would you rather sell 3, 4, 5 people a $1,000 to $3,000 product, or would you rather sell a whole bunch of smaller things? So the first thing is you have to be good at something. You have to offer. You have to have something that gets someone an outcome, right? I know you and I talked about this.
Yep.
So motivation in and of itself is a difficult thing to sell. It has to 100%. Be tied to an outcome. So what's the outcome that you get for somebody? And what is the easiest way for you to get somebody that said outcome? Is it a small group experience? Is it one-on-one? Is it through a book? Is it through videos? Like, figure that out.
So it's figuring out, I just want to make sure I'm hearing you right for those. So figuring out the outcome you bring people and the delivery method that you're giving it to them. And then figuring out the math that it needs to be. First of all, what do you value yourself at? What do you value your time? What does that delivery method look like? And then figuring out the math behind it.
Well, the problem that the girl earlier today was having was she was looking at it as, what do I want to charge for an hour of my time? The correct answer is, what is the value of it to my client? If I'm charging hourly, but I know it's going to make my client $25,000, but I'm charging hourly, then I have to suddenly say, well, my hourly rate is $3,000 an hour. But it doesn't matter whether it takes me 1 hour or 10 hours. If it makes her $25,000, what should my rate be?
Right. And what is that $25,000 outcome worth to the client? Correct.
So that's where you start to come up with the pricing for your services. But I will say, I hate it when people enter the market and they immediately say, well, okay, then I'm $10,000.
I do too.
Before you do that, go serve some people for free, not too many, and like, you don't want to do like a huge, massive thing, and you don't want to waste a whole bunch of time, but find 2 to 5 people that are committed. This is the thing. When people pay you, they pay attention. When you do stuff for free, a lot of times they fall off. So you have to find 2 to 5 people that are really, really committed and then serve them. Once you've got the ball rolling and you know what it looks like and you've got some results for people, then you can start charging. But until you get some results for at least 1, 2, or 3 people, it's really, really hard. Like, your mind will fight you on it, right? You might say, oh yeah, no problem, I'll charge. But then when somebody pays you, you're like, oh man, somebody just paid me $5,000. I have to get them an outcome. I don't know quite what's going on. Oh my goodness. Do it for free until you at least get the ball rolling. But then go charge, and charge what it's worth to you. And you can even tell people when you're starting, hey, this is my first founder's offer. I'm going to do it at a discounted rate. Know that I'm just getting started. People will give you the benefit of the doubt because you're being authentic.
Yep. And I started with, when I first started coaching, I did one-on-one, and I took on like 3 people that I worked with for free, like one for like $500, and built some social proof, built some testimony, figured out how to bring value into people's lives. Launched the Motivation Everything Club, and the Founders Offer, which ends tomorrow, is the cheapest it'll ever be. But that was it right now. Like letting those 12 people know that this is the cheapest it'll ever be. It is just starting. That's why you're getting it at such a good rate. I'm going to pour my heart and soul into getting you the outcomes that you want. And I'm transparent, and I'm going to leverage it as social proof to continue to build this. And this mastermind will be $5,000 soon.
Yep.
But you guys are the reason that I'm going to get it there.
That's exactly it. Like nobody can argue with any part of that story, right? Like, oh, it makes sense that it would be $5,000. Right now he's doing it a little bit less because he's just getting started, but he obviously knows what he's doing. He's got the outcome himself. He's got the outcome for a few other people. I want it. Like it's not like that whole story makes sense to somebody's subconscious. Whereas somebody that's like, I have no results at all. I've never done this. I've kind of got results for myself. Maybe I'm going to charge $5,000. Let's go. Like your brain has a hard time handling that. Your clients are definitely going to have a hard time handling that.
Dude, and I'm all about integrity, and there's no way in heck that I want to invest my money or have someone invest money with me that's not going to get the results that we're working for them. So to step into a marketplace and say, pay me 10 grand to change your life, well, that's a bold statement. You better have a process to do that with somebody.
Right. I mean, I think honestly, that's why we see people come and go so much in this market. They come in, they say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. They make a little bit of money, but they don't get any results. There are a bunch of people who are good at selling and horrible at getting people results. And then they fade away because the marketplace, like they'll be found out very quickly in today's day and age.
For sure. What's interesting is it's usually one or the other. I see some guys out there are super talented and they're not very good at selling and like marketing, right? And they're just like, man, this person's like they're a gem, just hidden in the rough, waiting to be exposed. And then I see people that are like all good with marketing and selling, but their delivery, in my opinion, from what I've seen, isn't what it could be. But anyways, moving on to another topic. Let's see, where are we at right now for time? So we're coming to the top of the hour. Steve, I know you had something free to give away to everybody. Tell us about this free gift. I'm excited about this free gift. I like free gifts. Guys, if you like free gifts, drop down in the comments below. I like free gifts. Let me and Steve know that you like free gifts, and maybe Steve will be nice and give us a gift.
I'm glad that you guys like free gifts. So I'm going to do 2 things. The first one is I'm going to give away, I have a Stories That Sell training. It's about 20 minutes. But it will walk you through this process a little bit more in depth and really give you a very clean framework that you can use. You can go to storiesthatscale.com to get that for free. You can also reach out to me on Facebook, on Instagram, or through email. I'm happy to send it to you there. The other thing is I will sit down with anybody who comes to me through this call. I'm happy to sit down with you for 20, 30 minutes and map out one story in your life. This isn't a sales call. This is me actually just sitting down, listening to you talk, and then giving you direct feedback and helping you build out your story. Cody, you're going to post the link for that. I've sent it to you. You can post that down below. But anyone is welcome to jump on my calendar for the next 2-3 weeks, and we will sit down and actually get your story done so that you have it. It's a great gift. It will help you move forward in life. If you have a speaking gig coming up, if you're going to be on a summit somewhere, or if you want to do a webinar, it will give you your main story for that. It will help you get a lot more engagement and hopefully get a lot more sales because people will make it to the pitch.
Wow, Steve, well, we're really grateful for that. Guys, if you don't know the value of that, guys like Steve charge a lot of money, thousands of dollars just for their time. For the hour he gave me tonight, it's probably worth a couple $1,000 typically to Steve. This is someone that has spoken on stage, that trains top level people on how to sell. You've heard some of his clients. What'd you do last year? Like over 2.8 million your clients sold from stages to webinars. Yeah. So,
I mean, the big sale we did. So we built this whole deck, and I trained the guy how to speak. Right. This is such a fun story. So he was really nervous because he has an engineering background, super, super technical. he's on stage, he goes through, he tells some stories, like he gets to the pitch and you could tell like he was super nervous. And everybody was on the edge of their seat. Like there was all this energy in the air, right? And then a guy knocks over a chair and starts headed to the back of the room and starts what we would call a table rush. And when it was all said and done, we did 980,000 in 45 minutes. Guy's first event, nervous as crap to speak on stage, but he followed the plan. He listened to everything. And we actually, because he closed over the next 2 days and we had some stragglers, we did, I think, over 1.2 million at that event. That was before COVID. But that's like seeing that change. And he came back afterwards, right? He was just like, I was so scared on stage. And he's like, then I saw people start moving. And people got up and he was like, this is really happening. And he was like, all that fear just like left my body. He's like, I started shaking. It was just really, really cool to see that. But that's the power of stories. That's what this does. It will transform your webinar, your Facebook Lives, any virtual event that you speak on. Your story is what sells more than anything else that you do.
Wow. So in closing here, I always like to ask, what's one last gold nugget that you could drop for everybody live with us right now and everybody that watches the replay? You have free reign. Any last piece of advice?
Man, there's so much out there. I mean, basically, learn to tell great stories. Know what your value is. And if you show up and you give value, people will lean forward and your business will grow. It's as simple as that. It's not about the mistake that I made with my first event was that I thought it was all about holding a great event. I knew how to do that. It wasn't about the thing. It was about the marketing of the thing and about connecting to people. Authentic connection will change your business.
Drops mic. I love it. So much value, Steve. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time. We all appreciate your time to do this. What are some ways people can find and connect with you?
Yeah, sure. Facebook's probably the easiest. I use Facebook Messenger for a lot of my communication. Steve Werner. You can find me very easily on Facebook because that's where we are right now. I'm sure I'm tagged under this. Just send me a message. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me. I'm always happy to have a conversation with somebody. If I can help you out, I will.
All right. And we will get the link dropped for the free storytelling training. And then do you have a link for people to connect with you for that call you could drop as well?
Yep. That call will be underneath as well. It's super simple. It'll set you up for a 25-minute call where we will go through the story with you.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Steve. Guys, I appreciate all of you that are on here live with us, all of you that watch the replay. This is Motivation Everything's expert interviews. We do them live every single week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time. I bring phenomenal guys like Steve Werner in, ask them a bunch of questions. You guys get to take a bunch of notes, and we get to go apply to our lives to create massive change. Stay tuned to next week. I got another awesome guest coming in, same time, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome.
All right.